Happy Friday. Welcome to Hot Flash Health. I am Dawn Fable.
And I am Courtney Mamusha.
And we have the incredible Bradley Goldman, who is not a dad bod. Bradley is the CEO of Nutrition Built Strength and has approached fitness in such an interesting capacity. We'd love to hear a little bit more about you, Bradley, and what you've done. And then we're going to encourage you to take off your shirt and show the ladies a little bit of action.
What kind of dad bod you are.
Oh, Dawn and Courtney, it's
If
great.
you want to.
Thank you so much for having me on. No, getting me to take my shirt off is never going to happen these days. Thank you for having me on. To be a guest on Hot Flash Health as a 35-year-old man is quite the honor. It's something that I have to bridge all the time when discussing nutrition and weight loss and menopause and hormones, and why am I qualified to speak on a matter that I've never experienced. So I'm very, very grateful to be on. Thank you.
That was one of my questions, but we'll dig into that. And I think you're quite certified.
Yeah. So tell us about your background. Tell us what led you into the curation and vision of Nutrition Built Strength.
Why I decided to, start to look at the industry and help women who are getting no answers, you mean? So a little bit of my backstory. So this was never the trajectory my life was supposed to go. I was a kindergarten teacher once upon a time for 2.5 years in Beverly Hills at a private Jewish school. I realized I couldn't hack that. Left that, went back to school, and built my personal training business. It was Be Strong, Stay Fit. I had it for about 8 years. Beverly Hills 2020 hit. I watched my 8-year business crumble in 14 days. At the time, I was married. My daughter was on the way. Single income household. We'd only had the house for maybe like a year and lost everything. And I had to find a way to pivot. And I was a sports nutrition specialist and a strength and conditioning coach. I always had a passion for nutrition because as an ex bodybuilder and powerlifter, you can move your body all you want. If your nutrition's dialed in, you're never going to get the physique that you want. And the more that I dove into research or lack thereof, started finding out that nutrition plays a bigger role when it comes to longevity and things like that. Nutrition Built Strength, it was a Hail Mary. I had a pretty skewed relationship with food post competing in powerlifting and bodybuilding for 8 or so years. My relationship with food, my relationship with my body image, all of that changed. When we were trying to have my daughter, I was infertile from the years of steroid abuse. I had to go through IVF treatment, which meant obviously no steroids, which meant my body changed drastically, and then throw the pandemic on top of it. Now I don't have a gym. My world was turned upside down. Through creating Nutrition Built Strength, we were predominantly working with women. Back once upon a time, it was just me. To be quite frank, I built the business because I could help you build a butt, and I was good at it. I realized the lack of proper narrative that was being fed around weight loss when it came to women. We actually ran a sample study back in 2020, what helped us build the program we have today. Found there's 2 statistics done out of Washington State University. Those 2 statistics are kind of what helped us build the program. It was that 95% of women that have done any kind of weight loss program in the last 10 years of their life have gained and lost the same 5 to 10 pounds more than once. What does that tell me as a business owner? That tells me that we haven't solved the yo-yo dieting problem. We're creating more problems than we are solutions. And from an industry that's been around since 1863, that's absolutely fucking appalling. The second was that the average woman puts on about 7 pounds per year off of a 48-hour eating window, typically being Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So again, how do I interpret that? We haven't solved weekend binging. And the people that are suffering the most are women. And what does that tell me? That means my daughter is going to suffer. So that's not okay for me.
You bring up yo-yo dieting and all of the misconceptions and misinformation out there on social media. And in following your social presence, Bradley, you do an amazing job of really squashing all those misconceptions. Can you talk about the 3 to 5 top misconceptions that menopausal or middle-aged women are hearing and being fed that are complete and total bullshit as it pertains to nutrition and weight loss?
I would love to keep it to 3 to 5. Let me do my best. One of the biggest misconceptions is first that you need to eat the same caloric value on a daily basis. Now, both of you have children. Both of you are parents. Both of you are menopausal. I can confidently say that it is not natural for any woman or adult for that matter, especially if you have children, to eat the same in terms of a behavior standpoint, Monday through Friday as you do on Saturday and Sunday. It's not natural. It's not normal. Why?
Yeah, totally.
Because by the time we get to Friday, guess what? We need a fucking drink. By the time we get to Saturday, we're Ubering all the kids around.
Friday?
Yeah,
3 o'clock.
naturally speaking, if we're going to look at weight loss as something long term and sustainable, we have to look at what are natural behavior patterns. And it is not normal to expect somebody to not indulge a little more on the weekend. So telling somebody to eat the same caloric value Monday through Sunday is going to be a failing approach. And we've seen that time and time again, because that's not how our bodies, how our lifestyles are set up. They're not. I know as a dad, I promise you, by noon on a Saturday, after being running around with baby girl all day, I'm like, I can go for a margarita. The idea that you have to eat the same amount of food on a daily basis is, you can do it that way, but it doesn't have to be done that way. Second is that calories in, calories out doesn't work once you're in menopause. Oh, I just went on a huge rant on my story about this. That's a battle I have to fight on a daily basis, because somebody was like, calories in, calories out doesn't work because of hormones. Hate to break it to you, but it does. As somebody who deals with hormonal imbalance, who's on TRT the rest of his life, I promise you, calories in, calories out still does work, even with menopause. And the analogy I always like to use is, if you're going to use hormones as an excuse, totally fine. But CICO is still how we're going to elicit weight loss. And here's the analogy I like to use. If we look at competitive bodybuilders, the big guys that have like 2% body fat, that have a massive amount of muscle and almost no fat ratio. If we were to use the basic equation, Mifflin-St. Jean equation, to determine their caloric intake, it's not going to be entirely accurate. Why? Because they have a variable in there that we cannot mathematically account for. Hormones, steroids, okay? When it comes to menopause, we are looking, yes, at your height, your weight, your age, and your projected level of activity. But what's the thing that we can't account for from a mathematical equation? Hormones. So when you're applying CICO and you don't have an expert to account for the hormonal changes to make sure that calories in, calories out are going to work, you're going to fail every single time and twice on Sunday. But if you're trying to do it on your own, you're going to feel like, yeah, calories in, calories out don't work. Also, then there's the whole psychological dieting versus actually physically dieting. The third misconception is that carbs are bad. Carbs are bad. I mean, there is nothing more fucking infuriating than people go, I have insulin resistance. Do you? Have you checked your T3 levels, your free T3? Because that's one way we're going to determine if you're actually insulin resistant. I can't eat carbs. Carbs make me fat. No, you eat too much. Period. End of story. You stopped eating carbs. Right. You stopped fucking eating carbs for months. And then you decided to slowly start putting them back in, but you didn't take away from the caloric value from anything else you're eating. So it's not the carbs that are making it impossible. It's that you didn't adjust everything to account for putting the carbs back in your life.
Well, I bet too, people like don't know that carbs are hidden and stuff, right? I mean, obviously, like a lot of people aren't reading ingredients, and if they're like, I didn't have a bowl of pasta, but I'm still like, they don't know they're consuming carbs.
It's not even that they have carbs. Like let's get really remedial. I'll talk about my dad for a second. If I was like, Dad, what's the difference between a fruit and a vegetable? He'd look at you fucking deer caught in headlights and couldn't tell you the damn difference. Okay, honest to God. And most people can't. There's this really skewed notion when it comes to weight loss. I am the expert. I know how to do this. Okay. Where else in your life does that apply where you're actually not the expert? Because I can tell you right now, both of you have lovely hair. And I'm sure that you don't go into your bathroom, take out some shears, and start fucking cutting your hair and dyeing it. Is it fair to say that you go to a salon?
I went yesterday. Thank you for noticing.
Oh, I never dye my hair, so
But you go,
thanks for
but to
noticing
go
that
get your
I
hair
have
cut,
those
to get your hair cut or colored, you don't do it yourself, right?
Totally.
Because you're not the expert.
And
No.
I'm now scheduling appointments for my chin hairs.
Oh.
You know, with
Oh,
menopause, you get chin hairs.
I need that. for
I'm
sure.
losing hairs in my beaver, and they're just
Mine are
going
all
to
gray.
my chin.
Mine are gray.
Some people, there's this ego to it that they have to do it on their own. And nowhere else in our life, unless you're a dumb man, which is most men, do you look at things and go, I actually don't know how to do this. I've tried to do this and I failed at doing this, but I'm going to keep fucking doing it on my own. No, go hire yourself an expert. The expert that, right, the expert that knows how to do this for you. But to take it a step further, the expert who is in the industry of health and longevity and health care, not sick care. And what do I mean by that is things like Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers has something that I fucking hate. It's called the lifetime membership. If you have a lifetime membership, guess what? You never want your patients or your clients to ever stop working with you. And that should never be the goal.
I mean, Oprah hates it too. She just dropped it.
Yeah, she did.
Oprah's like, done.
When it comes to weight loss, the reason people fail so much is first of all, they're finding people that aren't qualified to work with them. The 20-something-year-old fucking Instagram, TikTok influencer who has no kids, has never gone through pregnancy, has never gone through divorce, has never had a parent die, who's never had a child, who's never had to manage 3 different fucking schedules, telling you that like everyone has the same 24 hours. You can make it work. Shut the fuck up.
Bradley, you're sort of like a menopausal woman. Like, I think that this is all rubbing off on you because your flying fucks are going out the window. You say it how it is. And I love it. It's so refreshing because this is something that middle-aged women do not recognize, that your typical nutrition or exercise program is not the same as it was in your 20s or 30s, and you're addressing it with reality, and you're addressing it with empathy, and you're addressing it with empowerment, which is the coolest part about it. Why is there a deficit or absence of people like you out there?
Personal opinion is that as women, you are the ideal demographic for any weight loss company. Why? Because your fucking mothers, when you were 8 years old, took you to their Wednesday night Weight Watchers meeting, and you saw them chomping down Atkins bars and Slim Fast shakes and going there and clapping for fucking Becky the neighbor who lost the same 5 pounds, eating 1,000 calories a day for the 12th time. And you are the ideal prey. And without that, if you are not prey, that means they have to address the bigger issues in the industry.
That is so true. It's like monetizing
women,
fat people in desperation.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love the word fat because people take the word fat as a negative thing. Fat is just a descriptor. And depending on who you're talking to, it's either a descriptor or it's a negative connotation. But if you look at men aren't sold 12 different fucking razors to shave your legs. I shave my legs, just so you know. And I use a Venus.
Can we see your legs too?
I use a Venus too.
Wait, maybe we're gonna see your
legs.
Your
hot leg.
bod.
Oh yeah.
Although I love
you missed it, Dawn.
I love your fiance. So I mean, she did good. That's
At the
incredible.
end of the day, beauty is something that has been predominantly and almost entirely fed to women to prioritize, and that's what the weight loss industry goes at when they really should be going at. If we're talking about weight loss, it shouldn't be about beauty. It should be long-term and sustainable health. And I think that's one of the biggest issues. And because that is not easy to market. That is not easy to sell.
Do you feel like there's a transition though? Because I feel like a lot of us now are more focused on like self-care and mental health and, you know, loving our bodies and our community.
I think we're in this weird paradigm right now where I think there is a portion of people that are starting to look at things differently. I say all the time, if I can leave this world a little better for my daughters and they can look and say, you know, Ava can be like, Bradley tried, and Kennedy goes, my daddy did everything to, you know, help future generations. I know I've done a good job. But I think with that shift, there is then going to be this weird gray area of people that go, well, if this hasn't worked and it has been predatory and we're starting to shift, there's going to be a section of people that go all the way the other direction, where we start to negate the science, where we are anti the science. If the weight loss industry relapse rate for putting weight back on is over 90%, and every question always has an agenda, and the agenda was essentially to get to, if this is just the way it is, why does anybody try? Well, I mean, that's ridiculous. That's like saying, okay, so because we have an obesity epidemic in this country and people are dying and it's just the way it is, we should negate all the science and stop trying. No, that's not the answer. The answer is the science is, if we can all agree that the science is true and factual and non-negotiable, most people can get to that agreement. If we can agree on that, then it's not the science that's the problem. It's the education and application of the science that's the problem. And I think to get to that middle place, which is what we do, which is essentially what we built this whole program off of, we can all agree that calories in, calories out elicits weight loss with 4 different metrics that we use to determine what that caloric value is. Great. If we can agree on that, then what is the gap? But I think to get to that middle is very hard for some people because this, in their mind, the industry has failed them for so many years. It failed them. It failed their mothers. It failed their grandmothers. So why, if the problem hasn't been solved even a little bit, or it's gotten worse, why am I to trust in that industry? So back to your question, I do see that shift slowly happening, but I think with that shift is going to come the complete other side that's going to then have to be battled and brought to the middle. Really no different than politics.
What are the four, you talk a lot about it, Nutrition Built Strength, your four pillars of how you approach this program, this very customized, realistic, and sustainable program?
Integrity is one. And when we talk about integrity, we say integral to the science. We literally have the most credentialed experts. We have registered dietitians that have at least 3 years of clinical experience under their belt. They have their master's in nutrition. And the registered dietitians that work for us, they're all women. Why? Because they're women that understand women, and we predominantly serve women.
Man, you are either like crazy or the most brilliant man in the entire world, surrounding yourself with women everywhere. And mind you, menopausal women. Like, we're batshit crazy.
And the second one is communication. First of all, communication is lost on us thanks to social media, thanks to cell phones and things like that. Communication, not in the necessarily just the frequency, but how we communicate. Most people have a hard time, especially women, because you're expected to be able to spin all the dishes while you're standing on one foot, juggling 1,200 other things. When it comes to communication with our clients, our registered dietitians use a style of communication called motivational interviewing. Essentially, starting to educate through behavior on how to help these women, instead of our registered dietitians constantly saying, what do you need? What do you need? Having them ask for their needs. Accountability. If I ask the two of you, outside of you two, when you struggle, how big is your list of people that you can call, that you would call without even blinking? Five?
Yeah. My mom always says count yourself fortunate and lucky if you have 5 good friends. You can count them on.
They're on this battle alone, and you can't force your spouse or your better half to be on this journey with you or to support you in it. But you need accountability, and you need somebody that believes in you and that's going to understand you and going to be there for you when your spouse is like, it's Tuesday and they want to order fucking pizza, and you just made dinner at home that's going to work for the whole family, and you need to navigate that. How do you navigate that? In the last is family. We're a family-owned company. When we design the program, there are certain things that we put in place because I've heard way too many times that, one of the things they hate about working on their weight loss or their nutrition is I make this, warm dinner for my family. I make Taco Tuesday on Tuesday, and I'm over here eating fucking ice chips and a plate of sadness. Mom should never be the one who takes care of everybody and then just sitting there choking down her fucking ice chips and sadness, with tears coming down her face with no results. Like, that should never be the way it is, because that's not realistic.
And we are having so much fun with Bradley Goldman. We think that we really need to have him on for like 3 or 4 hours, or better yet,
Part 1, 2, and 3.
Totally.
Part
or
1, 2, and 3.
You can be the ambassador, the male ambassador of Hot Flash Health, which I actually want to bring up a really interesting topic, which we touched on before. You said, and thank you for sharing your vulnerabilities and being true and honest. You said that you struggled with fertility, and you said that you are also on hormones yourself. As a man, can you speak to that? And even more so, as a woman, us as women, how do we identify if our spouses, partners, whatever, might need to go down
Definitely things that you'll notice if all of a sudden, if they've been, let's say, like really active or really energetic, and they see a drastic change in their energy levels, if they see a drastic change in muscle loss with no changes to other things like diet or exercise. There's a lot of facets here that it's hard for me to say look for these things, because it can be like, okay, look at a decrease in muscle mass. Okay, but also how they start exercising. Are they eating differently? There's a lot of different nuances. I think one of the, I want to say, emotional or mental indicators would be if they're a driven person, lack of drive, lack of being energetic, lack of like a shift in mood. Again, granted that there's no major life changes that have happened or things like that. I think that's hard for a spouse to detect. And I know the answer that most people are looking for is decrease in sex drive. That's not the case, because you can have a healthy testosterone level. Right.
Mm-hmm. So switching gears, how as a woman might you know that it's time for you to start seeking support around hormone replacement therapy?
Again, multifaceted. Basic things, let's say you do have a, we'll say, healthy sex drive, and all of a sudden you notice your lack of desire for sex. Again, granted that nothing has changed. Let's say that you haven't changed anything about your nutrition or your exercise routine and you see fat increasing for no reason. Probably something to look at. Let's look at your sleep. Let's say you've always slept through the night just fine, and all of a sudden you're having a hard time staying asleep. That's a factor. Let's say when you picked up the kids from school, you'd be like ready to go, and all of a sudden when you pick up the kids from school, you're like, oh my God, this is a fucking drag.
What I've been dealing with, and I think like when we started this journey together, it actually made me think about hormones, is because, you and I talked earlier, you lost your father, I've lost both my parents within 3 years. So I think like I've been on this grief journey and thinking like, I don't want to get out of bed. I feel drained. I'm not sleeping very well. I used to be really energetic and I barely like have the energy to even do this podcast, and I'm
No,
like a bubbly, fun
really?
person. So I'm wondering like how I'm wondering how women who, the same thing, are probably feeling like both of us, like just drained and like stressed with life and like snapping at our kids and wanting to chew our husbands or partners' heads off. Like how can we tell? Is it life, or is it something that we need
I
to
think if
look
you have it
at
in
that's on a
question, you go
deeper
get blood
level?
work done, point blank. And this is where I get it.
Okay.
And then how can you support that from a nutritional and um, physical sort of health journey
Definitely. So I
as to
think
what
let's
you
go back to
guys
the blood
provide?
work, because you'll go to a lot of doctors, and it took me a long time to find a doctor that would listen. Because when you go get blood work done, you have a range of, it's in normal range or it's out of range. It's black or white. Here's the thing: as humans, we're not black or white. So what looks normal for me may not actually make me feel normal. And with women, you get the shit on the stick when it comes to hormones, because they're like, oh, you're all within range. And then you look at your blood panel and you're like, but I'm on the low end of everything, or I'm on the high end of everything. Okay, then I'm not, I might be normal, but it's not optimal, especially if you're still experiencing negative, let's say, effects of the hormones that are changing within your body, and you don't know that. So just because the paper says normal doesn't mean optimal. And having to advocate for yourself for that is very, very difficult, because again, we're looking at hormones or blood panels as black and white for things that are going to affect things more than just what's your vitamin D level, what's your white blood cell count, what's your red blood cell count. They're not looking at how testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, free testosterone, your T3, how they all play together, because they all play together. So just because one is within range, what is it doing for the other one? So that's always, you have to find somebody that's going to listen to you, because you're going to know what feels good for you. Like, you just are. From a nutritional standpoint, we tell people all the time, we monitor 4 different metrics. We don't just monitor the scale. We monitor your compliance. How compliant are you being? We're monitoring the scale on a daily basis, because if we weigh daily, we can see trends that occur. If we weigh once a week over 12 weeks, you're going to step on the scale, you're going to see 12 data points, and it might look like you don't fucking do anything, when really you've actually trended down. You just happen to be holding a lot of water because you had salt last night, or your hormones are just rearing their ugly heads. So even though you're being compliant, the scale is just like, big old fuck you. But we also measure your weight, because we want to make sure that we're monitoring you with 4 different metrics. The goal is never to eat as little as possible, as fast as possible. The goal is to keep you fed as much as possible for as long as possible, because the longer we can sustain that caloric intake at a higher level, the longer we can sustain that weight loss.
That actually makes me wonder, and I don't know your thoughts on this, but having dieted like the rest of us women and men for centuries, do you look at like food and say, okay, like people should be eating 5 meals a day, or is it like drink shakes, or like is there anything? So you're just mainly looking at
No.
calories.
So we typically design programs being breakfast, lunch, snacks, and dinner. Why? Because most people can eat a first meal of the day. They usually eat middle of the day. They usually have snacks scattered throughout the end of the day and after dinner, when they go on a search and destroy mission in their fucking pantry, and they have dinner. That's the typical eating pattern that most people eat. Now, how we, but when it comes from how many meals per day, what's your lifestyle look like? Are you the executive level, CEO, who you have coffee and you're running out the door in the morning? The only thing you get in is your coffee and you're not hungry. And then at lunch, you're at the office, but your lunch can be standard because you're at the office Monday through Friday. Dinner's with your family, but you eat typically most of the food you eat is around dinner time because that's the only time you actually have time to sit. And you know that you're a search and destroy mission fucking commander in chief at the end of the night. So instead of saying, we're going to put you in the box and you have to do X, Y, and Z thing at X, Y, and Z time, great. Let's look at your lifestyle and then apply the science to your lifestyle. Let's not put our expectations on your lifestyle because that's going to be a failing approach. Again, going back to the 5-2 split, how we design things where you have a little lower caloric intake Monday through Friday. We give you more calories on the weekends, and we let you literally eat anything from cookies to cocktails. We don't care. As long as you stay within that caloric window, you're going to see success, and it's going to be sustainable because it's more realistic. But when it comes to going back to calories in, calories out, you're going to lose weight if you're in a caloric deficit, period, end of story. But there's this thing, and this is happening a lot with the GLPs, is people are losing the weight and look in the mirror and go, why do I still look fucking soft? Well, because you were in a caloric deficit, you lost the weight, you lost fat, you also lost muscle. So you lost muscle.
Talk to us about your opinion on GLPs and semaglutide as a nutritional expert, particularly with our population of menopausal women that are flocking to these drugs. You're looking at two of those flockers.
We're mother flockers.
That's a good mother flockers.
Hashtag.
So I actually think the GLP-1s are fantastic. I think the fact that we have such a big obesity epidemic in this nation, in this country, that I think the GLP-1s are fantastic in terms of that we are coming up with a solution to the problem. Here's my issue with the GLP-1s. It's no different than fen back in the 90s. They're overprescribed and they're prescribed the incorrect way. GLP-1s were made for a specific population of people, specifically being people who are obese. Okay. Now, I'm looking at you two ladies. Both of you don't fall into that category at all. But the problem with the GLP-1s is if we look at the obese population, what is the typical thing they're going to go for when it comes to to reduce their weight because it is a health concern because they are going to die if they don't do something about it? Bariatric surgery. Now, with bariatric surgery, here's the step that the GLP-1 prescriptions are missing. Bariatric surgery requires behavior change before having the surgery. They usually say you have to lose X amount of weight before we perform surgery on you, which means after the surgery, there are certain behaviors now that are instilled in this person to help them make sure that the surgery doesn't backfire and that the results last and it's actually sustainable and realistic for them because they don't just go into the surgery and then go back to eating, fried wontons that they're cooking on their stomach like we see in My 600 Pound Life, okay? With the GLP-1s, I mean, any Joe Schmo on the street can get GLP-1s and start taking them with no behavior change. And they're going to see some sort of results. But what happens is when we get off the GLP-1s, there is no behavior that was changed. So we're going to see these same issues that we saw with fen. We're going to see the same issues that we see with yo-yo dieting. I think the GLP-1s are great when they're used for the particular population that they were designed for. The biggest pitfall I see is the lack of behavior change that's required for the patients to implement before using the drug to make the drug actually work long-term and sustainably.
So is it fair to say that in order for us to maintain our weight and the weight that we've lost, we will have to be on these things indefinitely?
It's still so new. What the research was trending towards was that people who are on GLP-1s, most of them will have to be on some kind of dose of it long-term unless behavior change is implemented.
I am petrified to get off of semaglutide knowing that weight will come
right back.
Right back. And I don't love to exercise.
But I have friends who are off of it now for like 6 months and they've maintained their weight. But
Really?
they've also changed their diet. So they were used to maybe having shakes now. They've changed some things where, I don't know, we've already talked about this, but with my diet now on semaglutide, I don't really want to eat crappy food, right? Like it doesn't taste good. When I first started, I couldn't really drink. I think that there's things that your body does change adapting to these drugs, but I'm with you. I don't think it's like a lifelong solution for us. And, my health journey is like lately I've been like fainting and I don't know if that has something to do with it. My blood pressure's dropped. I've told all my doctors, but like it's things that I'm like scared to gain the weight back. And that's how much we fear as women that we're like jeopardizing our health in some time, in some respects.
It's sad.
It's
like
sad.
It's
and Dawn, I love that you're like, I don't like to exercise. Nobody would believe it, but like, I don't like to exercise either.
I
do it because I have to. But when it comes to when we're talking about body composition, nutrition, and things like that, exercise is a very small portion of the equation.
Okay.
Here's what if we look at it. Let's take the person who works out 5 days a week for an hour a day. That's 60 minutes out of your 24 hours. Your caloric expenditure in that 60 minutes is not going to make that substantial of a difference. Now, if your goal is to change the way your body looks and to reshape the way your body looks, yes, strength training needs to be taken into account. But if your concern is just keeping a consistent body weight, that's your nutrition. Point blank, end of story. That's what it is.
That's awesome. That's so good to hear you say that, because it's daunting to think about having to exercise incessantly and really watch what you eat. And so that's really refreshing. Now, talk to me about this, because on your social media profile you bring up something really interesting, which is a very similar conversation I've had with my general practitioner, or any physician out there for that matter. That is, why am I gaining this weight? And they tell me that it's menopause. You say that is complete and total bullshit.
I love that, because that means they don't have to come up with an answer. They don't have to come up with an answer. They don't have to come up with an answer.
Now we know.
Oh, you're 40 something? You're gaining weight out of nowhere? It's menopause. Can't do anything about it. Just going to have to suffer and grit your teeth through it. And it's just put the last nail in the coffin and start digging 6 feet and call it a day. That's fucking ridiculous.
No shit. I had one doctor tell me, I said, I think I'm perimenopausal. And she said, welcome to the club. You're basically going to be a miserable
because
bitch
that's the
for
easy
next
answer.
10
Is that
years.
your GP? Was that your general practitioner?
Ish.
Yeah, ish.
Yeah, because otherwise they say, let me refer you to this endocrinologist. Let me refer you to this registered dietitian. It's not that there's no answer. It's that the answer is complicated. It's that the answer is going to take work. The answer is going to take more than just the person in the white coat who wants to tell you to eat 1,000 calories a day and they pull that fucking number out of a hat. It's going to take more work. And it's a lot easier to go, it's just menopause.
That's why people partner with somebody like you, right? I mean, you're like the anomaly for women like us, you know, you and Jennifer, obviously, the family business, who are helping women navigate this and saying, look, there are many facets to health. You're not just a general practitioner who's like, look, you know, we can do some blood work, but, you know, partnering with somebody on this journey for health, I think, is the most important thing. And having somebody like you guys in our back pocket who care and are, you know, motivationally energizing us and telling us what to eat and do and where to sit and spend, whatever.
I wish I could carry you around in my pocket, Bradley, but you're like,
I don't think he'd fit.
Your leg muscles and your arm muscles are far too far. You know, we have a lot of single girlfriends, her and I. Sadly, as you approach middle age, you also go through relational changes, as you know. You recently proposed to an amazingly badass woman, your business partner, Jennifer Barker, who is 10 years older. What advice do you have to all of our cougar friends where they could snap someone like you up who's handsome, smart, empathetic?
I don't have any advice on that. I say all the time, I'm like, I'm the lucky one. I honestly, I feel very fortunate. When I got divorced, one of my good friends I've known since I was 5, she got engaged within I think the first 3 months of my divorce. And when she told me, she goes, I feel really weird telling you. I was like, don't feel weird. She goes, you probably think marriage is stupid. I was like, absolutely not. I think marriage is a wonderful, beautiful thing if you do it right. I said, I think the problem is most people don't do it right. And I got lucky when I met Jennifer. I met somebody who I looked at and I went, here are all the skeletons in my closet. I'm going to look at everything I did in my previous marriage, everything that I did wrong. And I'm going to show you right out the gate. And if you're still on board, okay, let's try this thing. But I think marriage is an incredible thing. I don't think it matters about age. You know, we are 10 years apart, but generationally, where we are, she was born in 78, I was born in 88. The 90s, when it comes to 90s music, Dave Matthews Band, all the 90s, Oasis, her college years were, you know, my high school, middle school years. There's a lot of generational things that even though we were years apart, when it comes to pop culture, it was still part of big parts of our life. And
you have the same passions.
Drinking cocktails and wine. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And vacation sex.
Yeah.
And exercising.
My relationship with Jennifer is the second most valued relationship next to my relationship with my daughter. And there's nothing I wouldn't do for my daughter, and there's nothing I wouldn't do to make the relationship with Jennifer work. And I think it just takes a matter of being vulnerable. being vulnerable, and someone that you can look at.
You're
Oh,
a diamond
thank
in
you.
the rough, Bradley, in many regards, and we look forward to
Are
so
you
many
sure?
more conversations with
Yeah.
you because you've been an
Yes.
absolute pleasure. You've been so real.
Thank you.
How can we share with our community what you are doing at Nutrition Built Health, how people can connect with you and
guys,
Jennifer,
yeah.
how they can follow along with you? I think your social media is
Thank you.
fantastic.
There's
Tell
so many
us.
ways. You can go to my Instagram at Bradley A. Goldman. If you click the link, there's a link to our private or our free Facebook group. Our free Facebook group is honestly where you can get the most value. It's going to be the most personal. We're in that group. We do Facebook Lives. Jennifer and I try to do at least once a week. My Instagram at Bradley A. Goldman. My Facebook is where I spend most of my time. NutritionBuildStrength.com. If you go there, you can use our free macro and calorie calculator. Once you submit your information in there, we email you a how-to guide on how to actually implement those numbers. Those numbers are pretty useless for most people, so we give you a guide on how to use those. If you ever want to get on a call, you want to talk, fill out our client discovery form, get on our email list. Our email list is funny.
Are you
No,
shirtless
I'm
on
not
your
sure.
email list?
Yeah, are you shirtless?
You
Are there
got to
photos
ask
of you
Jennifer for
shirtless?
those.
Okay, good.
And your wife hasn't, or fiance hasn't
That sounded
equally
so
rocking
nice.
bod.
Honestly, anybody that's listening to this, I get it. Like listening to a 35-year-old man talk about weight loss and menopause and women's health, it's difficult. Like I said, I took care of my grandmother. My father died. I'm taking care of my mother. And most importantly, when my daughter was born, I realized I wanted to leave something better for her. Now I've got Jennifer in my life, and I've got, a 15-year-old stepdaughter who is also going to grow up in hopefully a different world than the women who I loved, the world they grew up when it came to their weight loss and their nutrition. And hopefully we can leave this world with a few more answers that are a little more attainable without so much noise, to make sure that they don't have the same relationship with food and shitty experiences that the women I love had to grow up with.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
You
great.
are amazing, Bradley. Thank you so much. We feel humbled and honored, are certainly much smarter for talking to you today. Bradley Goldman, CEO of Nutrition Built Strength, with his lovely fiance, Jennifer Barker.
Who was on already, and we will have them both back again.